Thanks, Kathy. The Commission for the Promotion and Protection of the Rights of Cultural, Religious and Linguistic Communities has today released a report on the KwaSizabantu mission in KwaZulu-Natal. It's found that corporal punishment was used as well as virginity testing, which was practiced, but the doctrine of the mission was within the scope of freedom of religion. For more on this, let's speak to Erika Bornman, who's a survivor and the author of the book Mission of Malice, My Exodus from KwaSizabantu. A very good evening to you, Erika. Grateful for your time. So, as someone who was caught up in the practices at KwaSizabantu and has written extensively about the experience, what is your reaction to the findings by the CRL Commission today?
Hi, Timbagile. Yeah, there's nothing good about this evening for us survivors of KwaSizabantu, I'm afraid. We've kind of all been putting our lives on hold, waiting on this commission, who took more than 2.5 years, thinking that they were the right body. They volunteered for the mission, by the way. Nobody asked them to do this. And it was sitting there listening to the press conference and now having read through the report, it's a travesty. But I've spoken to about 11 other survivors this afternoon since the press conference, and all of us felt that the commission is drinking a water, which is produced by KwaSizabantu, was an absolute slap in our face. There was no sensitivity towards us survivors. And then when a journalist, thank you to the journalist, called them out on it, they laughed. And this is from a commission who refused to read my book because they said that could be seen as bias. But they sit there drinking a water. Yeah, it's devastating. There are a number of issues with this report that I have serious problems with.
Would I be right to say, Erika, that one of those would be the finding by the commission that technically, based on its findings, what is happening at KwaSizabantu does not fall under the scope of a cult, but in fact falls within what the commissioner said is the scope of religious freedom?
Yes, well, the commissioner also said that a cult is a positive word. But you know what? I care very little about the beliefs of KwaSizabantu, as harmful as I think they are. We are worried about their actions. And it's their actions that harm children. And the commission minimizing abuse by calling it corporal punishment and saying it was lawful because it happened when corporal punishment was still legal, which I can refute with many testimonies. When has it ever been lawful to beat a young black child in public naked until he was bleeding or passed out? When has that ever been lawful? They absolutely minimized the abuse that everybody suffered by calling it corporal punishment and lawful.
And let's speak a bit about what you witnessed there, because your family, am I right to say, got caught up, if you will, in the matrix, and that's when you then witnessed and experienced some of the horrors. Share with us what you saw and what you experienced during your time at KwaSizabantu.
So I lived at KwaSizabantu in the apartheid years. I left in 1993. And even though they claim they're this multiracial utopia, they're a deeply racist compound. So I still had white privilege, big time, when I was living there. I didn't have anything as bad happen to me as what happened to my Zulu friends. But even so, they rule through fear. They're the very definition of a cult. They absolutely, it's their way or the highway. There was one commissioner that I really appreciated today, and she only spoke once, and she mentioned the shunning of families and the breaking of down of families that KwaSizabantu practices. And I'm very appreciative to her for raising that very important issue, because when you decide that this isn't the way you want to believe, then you are out, right, and you have no.
And towards the end of the report, in fact, the Commission says this, that other complainants did not even want their relatives to know that they'd made allegations about the mission because their relatives are still members.
You know, the Commission, the most egregious sentence in that entire report for me is them saying the Commission can only make conclusion on allegations that were admitted by the church. But they claim that the fact that us survivors didn't want to sit in a room facing our abusers is therefore a reason why they cannot investigate our claims. My mind, it just blows my mind that they can even call this an investigation.
And you're right, because they say, just to read for viewers who've not seen the report, this is the final paragraph, they say that due to inability of the witnesses to avail themselves for interrogation by the mission and also interrogate the mission in an open space where both parties are present, the commission could not verify some of the allegations made against the church and those made by the church against some of the witnesses. Why is it that some of the witnesses did not want to participate in the CRL investigation?
Actually, they wanted to participate in the CRL investigation, but they wanted their identities to be protected. And you know what? Many of these witnesses were children when they were abused and molested. And our law allows witnesses under these circumstances to remain anonymous. I have more than 70 testimonies from people like this who wanted me to give it to the commission, and the commission refused to engage with me on that because these people wanted to remain anonymous. I cannot describe to you the fear that KwaSizabantu places on their congregants. And when you leave, that fear doesn't simply go away. And for the commission to completely disregard this, I believe that they have abandoned their mandate and the obligation to protect minors. I'm truly, truly devastated.
Let us know if you're able to continue, Erika.
No, I'm fine. I'm fine.
And without taking you back to that horrific time, but from what you recall, who was doing the abusing? Who was beating children, sexually assaulting them at KwaSizabantu? How high up did the abuse go?
It was the leadership. In fact, I can name him because he has been named often in the media and in my book. Michael Ngubane, get this, he is the director of the board of the school. He was one of the worst perpetrators of the torture that I saw him beat children. You know, they used to hold the child down. One adult male would hold their arms down, one adult male would hold their legs down, and the other adult male would stand above them with a plumbing pipe that had been filled with sand to make it heavier and rain down blows on this defenseless child that had been placed in their care. And they have the temerity to say that that was lawful. I was about 10 years old when we were all called in. A young girl had been accused of stealing sweets. And they brought in a butcher's knife and this pipe, and they said to her, the Bible says that you cut off the hands of thieves. Choose. Do you want the pipe or do you want the knife? And you know what? As a 10-year-old child, I did not doubt that they would be doing God's will if they cut the hand off that 10-year-old child, that 8-year-old child. This is how they instilled fear in us, was through stuff like this.
It's quite intense that at 8 years old, you already believe that such a thing, such an act, which would be horrific to any other rational person, you thought that it would be something that A, would happen, and B, that it would be appropriate. And I'm curious about how children such as you and your families got to that point mentally where you believed to that extent, and then why it is that even after witnessing all of this, families stayed.
It blows my mind. You know, I was a child. I had no choice. But adults who choose to stay, I believe that they silence that inner voice. And that the first time that they see something terrible happening, they go, oh, it's not that bad. And they silence their inner voice so much that eventually that voice that's telling them to get the hell out of there just goes quiet. I cannot speak for the adults, but I know adults who joined as adults and who have left, who they have such bitter remorse for what they participated in and what they allowed and what they saw and didn't question. Coercive control is an incredibly powerful thing, and that is something that the Commission's report disregards completely.
We've gone over time, but do you see justice at all in the future, and how would you take such a fight forward?
Well, we've kind of been waiting on this report, because we thought they would be doing something, but they're clearly a toothless watchdog. We are going to be applying to the High Court to have the report set aside and to order the Commission to deal with the evidence they so carefully avoided. And we will be taking legal action now. It will be difficult because one of the things that the report doesn't mention is that there was recommendations to the Director General in the Office of the Premier of KZN. And it strongly recommended the establishment of a KZN Commission of Inquiry. And it actually said that there's a need for a centralized approach by different entities because KwaSizabantu Mission has an arsenal of legal and financial resources. So we are up against an arsenal of legal and financial resources, but this fight has actually only just started.
Thank you very much for that, Erika Bornman. Thank you for speaking to us tonight and sharing your story.